Agenda.
There are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion is second, adopt the agenda. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Need approval of the June 27th, 2013 minutes, or if there's any additions or corrections, need to know those at this time.
So moved.
Motion is second to approve the minutes of June 27, 2013. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Those minutes are now official. Any council members out there? Who? Okay. Council Lady Johnson, would you like to speak?
I was looking for an agenda.
I am coming up here to speak on the Murfreesboro Road UDO that is on the consent agenda.
Item 11.
Item 11. Thank you, Secretary Bernhardt. So, Chairman McLean and esteemed commissioners, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm here on behalf of the many residents within Southeast Davidson County, and we are very excited about the work that has been done by Ms. Catherine Winters and Ben Muskelly and the entire Planning Commission staff. They have done a tremendous amount of work on the UDO. We feel this is going to move our community in a very positive direction. The community meetings that were held with the Antioch Priest Lake Plan update, many of the aspects that people wanted to see within this UDO, which was, better design, open space, vehicular circulation, access, this to be in conjunction with the new MTA BRT Light. All of these aspects we feel are very complementary and they blend very well together. So again, we want to thank you for all of the work that you've done to create this urban design overlay for the Murfreesboro Pike Corridor. I think it is going to prevent us from having some of the issues that many of the more busier corridors that are fully developed in our county face at this time. And so that's all I have to say, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Just, Council Lady, we have had a request to pull that off the consent agenda. Just so.
Okay.
Council Lady Allen. Okay, thank you. Jennifer, any items to be deferred or withdrawn?
There are 4 items for deferral and withdrawal. Item number 1, 2013 SP-022-001 Kirkland Cottages. This is a request to rezone from R15 to SPR zoning for property located at 4201 Kirkland Road to permit up to 6 residential dwelling units. The staff recommendation is to defer indefinitely. Item number 7, 2013 Z-019PR-001. A request to rezone from CN to RM9A zoning for property located at 5516 Kentucky Avenue. Staff recommendation is to defer to the August 22nd, 2013 Planning Commission meeting. Item 15, 2013 S-112-001, Young Woods Re-subdivision Lot 6. A request for final plat approval to create 2 lots on property located at 3304 Hobbs Road. Staff recommendation is to defer indefinitely. And item 16, 2013 S-019A-001, Abbott Martin Estates, Lots 1 and 2 amendment. A request to amend the recorded plat to permit duplexes on properties located at 2311 and 2313 Warfield Lane, zoned R20. Staff recommendation is to defer to the August 22nd, 2013 Planning Commission meeting.
Commissioners, you've heard the request for items 1, 7, 15, and 16 to be deferred. Is there a motion? Motion second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Items on consent.
As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Planning Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact independent legal counsel. And as a notice to the public, the items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the Commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the Commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. We have several items on today's consent agenda. First is item number 2 on page 5, 2013S-089-001. William White Lands Re-subdivision Part of Lot 4. A request for final plat approval to create 4 lots on properties located at 1701, 1703, and 1705 Leashy Avenue, zoned RS5. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 4 on page 6, 2013Z-011TX-001, specific plan. A request to amend section 1740-105 and 1740-106 of the Metropolitan Zoning Code pertaining to the specific plan districts. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 5, page 6, Jennings Springs. This is 2008 SP-024G-12. The 4-year review of the Jennings Springs SP to determine its completeness for properties located at 6943 and 6947 Burkett Road and Burkett Road unnumbered. Approved for 64 single-family units, 80 attached cottage units, and 40 townhome units. Staff recommendation is to find the SP district active. Item number 6, 2013 SP-024-001 on page 6 of the agenda. North 11th and Scoville. A request to rezone from R6 to SPR zoning for property located at 1112 11th Avenue North to permit up to 6 residential dwelling units. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Item number 8, 2013 Z-024PR-001, page 6. A request to rezone from OR20 to OR20A zoning for property located at 813 19th Avenue North. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item 9, 2013 Z-025PR-001, page 7. A request to rezone from SP-MU to MUG zoning for property located at 4235 Murfreesboro Pike. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item 11, 2013 UD-0, this item has been removed from the consent agenda, item 11. Item number 12. 1-74P-005, page 7, the Southeast Davidson Community Center PUD revision. A request to revise the preliminary and for final approval for a portion of the Hickory Hollow Mall PUD overlay district for properties located at 5260 Hickory Hollow Parkway, 5178 Mount View Road, and Mount View Road unnumbered, zoned SCR, to permit the development of a cultural center, recreation center, and park. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item 13, 2013 S-054-001, page 8. Brentwood Knoll, Phase 1, Re-subdivision Open Space. A request for final plat approval to remove 380 linear feet of sidewalk required along the south side of Brentwood Knoll Court, and for a variance from Section 3-8 of the subdivision regulations for property located at 4048 Bryce Road, zoned RS10. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item 14, 2013 S-111-001, page 8. First revision of Eastland Oaks Reserve Parcel and Eastland Acres Parcel A. A A request for final plat approval to remove the reserve status from 2 parcels and to create 1 lot on a property located at Dalebrook Court, unnumbered, zoned R10. Staff recommendation is to approve with a condition. And finally, item 17, employee contract renewal for Lou Edwards, and item 18, contract amendment number 2 between Nashville, Davidson County Metropolitan Planning Commission on behalf of the Nashville Area MPO and the Nashville Civic Design Center, authorizing additional work on the development of booklets stemming from the Civic Design Center and UT Knoxville's studio work.
Was item, I was distracted there. Was item 18 on consent? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioners, you've heard the request that items 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 17, and 18 be approved on consent. Is there a motion? Motion second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, for the members of the audience, the items that will be heard on public hearing today is item 2, 3, and 10. And Councilman Duvall, I see you're in the audience. If you would like to speak. Distracted. Okay.
It's not 2, it's 3, 10, and 11.
3, 10, and 11. Excuse me. I don't know. He's distracted outside.
Good afternoon. My name is Cindy Wood, and I'm going to present to you item number 3A. It's the proposed amendment to the Green Hills Midtown Community Plan. The staff presentation for the associated specific plan rezoning, that's item 3B.
The audience would, if you have other conversations, you would take them outside. It's distracting to the commissioners up here to hear that buzz. So if you want to talk to someone else, just step out in the hall, please. Go ahead.
Okay, item 3B that immediately follows this item is the associated specific plan rezoning, and that will be presented right after this presentation, the items being closely related. The request is to change the current policy for the site, which is Neighborhood General, to T4 Urban Neighborhood Evolving. The area you see outlined in red is the area of the proposed amendment, while the area you see outlined in yellow is the site of the proposed specific plan, item 3B, on today's agenda. The staff recommendation is for approval. These are the proposed community plan policies I'll speak about in a moment. The area that's proposed for a community plan amendment is in neighborhood general policy, a residential policy that supports a variety of housing types in a neighborhood environment. Neighborhood general is one of the older community plan policy categories from the land use policy application document. The policies in land use policy application are being phased out through community plan amendments and updates and replaced with the newer community character manual policies. The current policy, Neighborhood General, as I've said, supports a mixture of housing types in a neighborhood environment. Development patterns may vary between neighborhoods, but the overall area needs to stay at or below 20 housing units per acre. And this policy is applied in urban and suburban and greenfield areas, so it's applied to areas that either already had that type of residential development pattern or where there is a desire to have it. The proposed amendment area is zoned RM40, which permits several housing options subject to a 40-unit per acre limit. This amendment area is in the middle of a larger RM40 area, and this RM40 zoning results in a higher density of development than the current neighborhood general policy supports. The proposed policy outlined in blue is called Urban Neighborhood Evolving, which, like Neighborhood General, is a residential policy, but it is one of the newer community character manual policies. Neighborhood Evolving policy supports a variety of housing types also, but it does support a higher intensity of development than Neighborhood General, especially in locations where you have good access to a variety of transportation options, existing infrastructure, and pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle connectivity. proposed urban neighborhood evolving policy is appropriate for this area because of its location, character, and infrastructure, and the level of change the area is experiencing. It's within the I-440 loop and close to the major urban street network. It's also less than a quarter mile from Hillsborough Village and is between Vanderbilt and Belmont Universities and Vanderbilt Medical Center. The infrastructure in the area includes bus transit and streets and sidewalks, and it is also on the proposed University Connector transit route. The amendment area and the larger neighborhood that it's a part of have a complete sidewalk network and are developed at a walkable scale. They do contain a variety of housing types and that are built at an urban scale that fits in with the proposed policy. There are changes going on in the neighborhood, seen in new construction that has happened recently. We also know that there are national trends that lead to redevelopment and infill in Nashville's older urban neighborhoods. There are trends towards younger people in particular and empty nesters wanting to move back into the central city and having less property to have to take care of. When we look at an evolving neighborhood and in developed areas, we do use their existing character as a starting point for what's important. This includes the scale and massing of buildings in the area, having a highly connected transportation network that gives a variety of options, being centrally located as within the city, as well as having proximity to major centers and corridors, being walkable, which is more than just sidewalks. It includes the human scale of the overall environment, and also the scale of the existing buildings. All of these factors support the proposed policy. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the community plan amendment request. Greg Johnson is now going to present the SP zone change. That's your next item on the agenda.
Commissioners, this is the SP portion of the 19th and Belcourt project. The request is for a preliminary SP to permit 36 multifamily dwellings on the site. Staff recommends indefinite deferral or disapproval of the SP request. The current zoning is RM40, which is a multifamily zoning district. A maximum of 18 dwellings could be permitted on this site right now under the RM40 zoning. And again, there are 36 units proposed under this SP request, which would be double the density permitted under the current zoning district. The policy is neighborhood general. It's a residential policy, as Cindy described. The applicant has requested a policy amendment because of the mismatch between the recommended density of the policy. Again, it's 20 dwelling units per acre for NG, and the proposed density of the proposal would be around 80 dwelling units per acre. So that sets out the need for the policy amendment request. And also, as Cindy described, the T4 neighborhood evolving policy is the requested policy with the amendment application. And based on this policy, the SP proposal would not meet the design standards spelled out in the community plan that go along with this policy to provide strong relationships between building entrances or building design and the adjacent street frontages. Here's a site plan showing the proposed layout. There are 5 floors total above ground, 4 floors of residential, and at the ground floor, a level of parking is proposed. There's also an additional level of parking proposed below ground. The access to the parking is from Belcourt Avenue along the south, and access to the residential dwellings within the building would come through the corner, two entrances on the corner through an amenity area that would be on the ground floor with the parking level. And here's building elevations to help show the overall design. Again, there are 5 floors above ground. The first level is parking, and there's 1 parking level below grade. And just to go over the entrances again, these are the 2 entrances that would lead directly to the residential units through the amenity area at the corner. And then there are several other entrances shown along the facade, and the SP doesn't really go into a lot of detail about these, whether they're operable or not, but if operable, they would lead directly into the parking area along the first floor behind that facade. And again, there is parking on the first floor, and this is the location of parking on the ground floor is the basis of staff's disapproval recommendation. Here's a close-up of the 19th Avenue elevation. Again, staff's recommendation is that the ground floor parking is not appropriate within the T4 neighborhood evolving policy or within the context of the surrounding area, as Cindy went through, of the Hillsborough Village area. Because of the ground floor parking, the ground floor will not provide an active connection to street level and will not be a pedestrian oriented or pedestrian friendly design. Doors to the garage along the ground floor are unlikely to be used or used often. Doors or stairs leading directly to residential units would help to improve the relationship between the buildings and the adjacent street frontages. And also, there aren't a lot of details shown on this rendering. Windows along the parking structure or along the parking level on the first floor are likely to be darkened and not look like real windows or windows on the rest of the building, and would essentially have the same effect as a blank facade on that ground floor. And just to go through some context around Hillsborough Village and some of the properties immediately surrounding the site provide good examples of ground floor design. There's an existing building to the east of the site. It has only a few entrances at the street frontage, but it has apartments placed at ground level, and the details of the window design and the continuity of the window design in the upper and lower floors helps to give the impression of activity at the ground level. And then here's the townhouse project to the north facing Wedgwood. And this building has been designed to have multiple entrances facing Wedgwood Avenue and provide stairs and stoops leading into those entrances. And you can see it's been designed to essentially hide or place parking behind the building and below the finished floor elevation of the first level. And this helps that building to provide an active street level to the sidewalk frontage. And just to close, staff recommends indefinite deferral to allow the applicant to revise the design to place the parking underground, or at least far enough underground where the pedestrian access can be provided directly to the first residential floor. And again, the current building design is not consistent with the design recommendations of the T4 neighborhood evolving policy to provide a pedestrian-friendly design and to provide stoops at ground level for interaction between the public and private realms. And also this has to do with the context. This is inconsistent with the context of the surrounding area of Hillsborough Village, which has a high level of pedestrian connectivity and has a lot of examples of strong street frontages and building design in the surrounding area. And that concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. This item is open for public hearing. The applicant will be allowed 10 minutes, and you may keep 2 back for rebuttal.
Yeah, the councilwoman here to speak. I don't think she heard that y'all were calling for her. I want her to go first.
Go ahead.
It's right behind that one. Sorry, we had a little setup time. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to our case, and we appreciate everybody listening because we have a lot of changes from what the staff had seen up to this point. And so we're handing out packages for you guys. Some of the stuff that has gone around with this process, Jay Fulmer, who works with me from Barge Wagner, I'm Todd Jakovich, the developer from Stonehenge. We have been through the BZA process, and just to give some underlying kind of consistent conversations that we've had or have stated, is the ultimate goal of this project, again, is currently zoned 18 units. As we purchased the first property and we have the second one under contract to purchase, our original plan was to do 18 units with 3-bedroom units and basically parking it at 1 per bedroom of 54 parking spaces. And we presented that originally to the BZA in the main reason to the BZA was to actually widen the footprint so that we could actually get more parking into the area. As we understand the area and we know it well, is there's a parking problem. And Nashville has a lot of parking problems. So we're actually over parking the property over the current zoning code. And that was why we went to the BZA. Now what we've come to you guys with, since that has evolved, the for sale product has come back into the market where it's a viable potential option. And so as we've consistently said, we want to build 54 bedrooms. We want to park it at 54 parking spaces. We looked at it and said, well, 3-bedroom for sale product is not the best product to sell. And so the better product to sell is 1s and 2 bedrooms. And so how do we look at the same product and what does this make sense? And so yes, our request is to ask for a double density. It's truly not a double density of bedrooms. And so we understand it is zoned by a unit density, but what we're asking for is really just to chop up the walls. To say, okay, instead of 54 bedrooms in 18 units, we're saying we're going to put 54 bedrooms in 18 units, some 2s and some 1s. With that, what we're asking for is approval. What we've come back with the SP, and we understand this with the current zoning, again, with by right, we can build 18 3-bedrooms. There's no design guidelines of any sort. We went to the planning staff and they told us that the community plan should be altered. That's pretty standard. Again, that's not our plan is to over-densify everybody. It's really our site is to say we don't really feel we're over-densifying it. We're just chopping up the walls. And so that's what we're asking you guys to look at. We're also looking at it from the standpoint of, for us, we've presented it to numerous people, and Jay will tell you the story of how we've gone this path to present to numerous people. We've had lots of ideas, as you guys saw up on the wall. Our first design had the parking. We were advised by the staff to cover the parking because they realized we couldn't necessarily put units in the parking deck, so we want to create the facade. We've now gone back, we've worked with local architects, the councilwoman, and other people to design the upgraded building that actually has more stairs, access points off of the units, and somewhat hid the parking lot by, again, leaving the current knee wall that's out there on the structure, but then also, or what appears to be the knee wall. Obviously, with the construction, it'll go away, but we'll replace it. And then create more of that active streetscape that everybody's looking for, but again, not showing the parking lot on that first floor. And as best as we can, again, Jay will discuss, but we have a topo problem. We have a 9-foot topo fall from back to front. And so to get into the parking lot and to not submerge the back part of the parking lot, we're driven with the front being elevated. And so again, back to our conversation about parking, the only way we can accommodate this is by putting units in the first floor is we remove 14 parking spaces. And again, parking is the critical for us, so we don't want to underpark the property. And there's really no way without just continuing to go down, and then it just becomes not feasible to do. And so again, we consistently are trying to say that the 54 parking spaces is key to the area, and we want to keep that in the development. But I'm going to hand it over to Jay to kind of talk through the process of what we've been through.
Commissioners, thank you for hearing our project. My name is Jay Fulmer, and I'm going to touch on the history of the project and the neighborhood involvement we've had so far, some of the site constraints and how they dictated our design, and walk through the elevations that Todd briefly touched on. So back in March, Todd identified this project as an 18-unit multifamily development. What we're showing on the parking on the first page of the packet that we gave you, so I'm going to step back. The packet was intended to be a presentation to you, but we were requested to distribute it this way versus put it on the slides. But we were approved by the zoning to do the parking layout that was on the right. That triggers to get the parking count 4 stories of parking. That's why we went to BZA. The one on the left actually reduces us down to 2 floors. It's a much more efficient parking layout. So we pursued that, put the project somewhat on hold while we pursued the BZA to ultimately reduce the mass. As we were progressing, obviously a lot of people had interest in the elevations and the architecture of it. We got deferred from some of the conflicting comments from the neighborhood, gave us more time to meet with them again. Went back and got approved by the BZA. That's at the time that we submitted to have the opportunity to change this to 1 and 2 bedroom for sale units versus the 3 bedroom apartments. Through both of those processes, we've had 9 meetings with the neighborhood, with the council member. The last step, there's an architect whose office is across the street. He was somewhat relied upon to give feedback to the council member. We met with him, and he agreed that we've done the best we can given our site constraints. So I'm going to walk through those real quickly. On the second page, you can see the darkened lines of the topography. I'm sorry if I get away from this. We're at an elevation of 600 at the corner, but we're at about a 589 at the driveway. That 589, our first floor elevation is set the second that we enter that. We've lowered it as much as possible, and that's going to be a solid plate that sets the first floor elevation. Down at the corner, we drop 9 feet, and so we're actually 14 feet differential from one corner to the next. It's cost prohibitive to step this building down being such a short distance. It's only 120 by 120. So therefore, we can't put units on the first floor along 19th Avenue unless we do as Todd said and kill 14 parking spaces. Parking is the primary issue in this neighborhood, and that's been one of the biggest complaints of everybody is this going to contribute to the parking problem? We went through with planning and discussed how we were going to hide the first floor parking, and we had an amenity area for entrances, and we hid the rest with doors that would lead to the parking area. Once we submitted that by the deadline for their review for today's meeting, they came back and ultimately requested deferral while we figure out how to put units here. The neighbors came back and said they would prefer the seat wall. They would prefer stairs up to the first floor, and they'd also prefer a third level step back. We have accommodated all those requests to the best we can. There are iterations in between these two, but I just wanted to show you where we stand today. Is the 2 minutes that's left, is that our rebuttal time? Or?
No, this is you're into your rebuttal time.
Okay. Then do you want to say?
I think just real quickly, the other thing that you'll notice, and again, why with the SP we feel we've put a lot of restrictions on ourselves and kind of self-induced based on the review of what the neighbors have said. And so you'll see with submitting the SP, we've not only put it in the SP with required bedrooms, parking, and also a lot of other things, including landscaping rules that we've had to put in, again, as part of the SP. So we're just trying to accommodate as best as possible. So thank you.
You'll have a minute 16 for rebuttal.
Yep, thank you.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in support of this project? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Please come to the microphone. Line up behind the microphone and give us your name and your address. You'll be allowed 2 minutes.
My name?
If you come to the microphone.
I'm coming up in the middle as the council person, if that's okay. I'm Berkeley Allen, council person for the 18th district, and I'd like to speak to both of these, the community plan change as well as the specific plan. Thank you for hearing us. I have to thank the owner. They have done a great job of communicating. As they've said, we have had a number of meetings with the neighbors. We've had at least 3 or 4 community meetings and some individual ones with people, and I appreciate their willingness to hear our concerns. The concerns that have been raised revolve largely around parking primarily, bulk of the property overall, and a density increase that just reflects the whole issue of parking and traffic within Hillsborough Village in general. To speak to the community plan, I am not in support of a change to the community plan for several reasons. First, primarily, because that's a plan that is developed through a community consensus and charrette type process. I feel that changes to the community plan should be made very, very carefully and with an awful lot of community input. We have had neighbors from the immediate area come to these meetings. We have not had the type of community input that I think is important for a community plan change. Secondly, I think the current zoning of RM40 is already the highest I can find on a metro map anywhere. I sort of scooted around the zoning map, and it doesn't get any higher than that. So I don't know that there's a benefit to allowing an official increase in density that the change to neighborhood evolving would give them. I believe, and y'all can correct me if I'm incorrect, that the neighborhood maintenance, which is what this would translate to as the new community characteristics are translated over, is RM20, but it does allow for some higher density when you are close to a major artery like Wedgwood Avenue. So I think there is some leeway within the existing community plan to work with possibly higher density, but not necessarily giving it an outright doubling to everything there. And finally, the parking is such a huge issue. And we're seeing from this topography, they have done yeoman's duty coming up with a way to disguise the parking, but if you have this much density on this small of a property, it's going to be very difficult, I think, on almost all the properties to get the parking you need without a whole lot of blasting or having parking above grade. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration as we're thinking of how you make a walkable community have the parking that's needed that goes along with an extremely high density. And finally, scale and massing was mentioned as part of the historic part of the property. The properties that are mostly around there, with the exception of the Lea Rose high-rise, are 2 to 3 stories high. There are a few around the area that are 4 stories high at their highest point, as opposed to the 5 stories that we would be seeing here. So I feel like the community plan needs to stay as it is so that we've got the input that we can have for that. And then finally, to address the specific plan in general, again, the owners have been very responsive. They have made many changes, and we are grateful that they have been good listeners. There was a local architect who made some suggestions. That is a plan that has not been reviewed by planning staff, and I think they would appreciate the opportunity to comment on that and perhaps make even further revisions. I feel like we've come a long way. They've listened to many things and made many changes. I don't feel like we're quite there yet. There's still concerns about the total number of units and the parking on the specific plan specifically. So regardless of the outcome, I feel like we still need more time to tweak this issue. That can be perhaps through a deferral, perhaps through you guys disapproving and we keep forging on and move on. But I'm not comfortable with moving forward with where we are yet. I think we've made good progress, and I would like to continue to do that as quickly as we can. But I would ask for your disapproval of both of these. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Betty Nixon. I live at 1607 18th Avenue South, which is about a block and a half away. I'm only speaking to the community plan change, which I oppose. Bought my house 41 years ago. The competing buyer was a doctor who wanted to put his office there. Nobody thought anybody would want to live in this neighborhood. In the intervening years, with the help of the commission, we've discovered the value of urban living, and I'm grateful. Our concern is we have negotiated a couple of these developments that you saw on the screen with developers happily, successfully. The trick has been to trade off density for design. That usually means setback and parking out of sight behind the building in most of those. I think the Planning Commission wants the same things, but in the language of the community plan, when they talk about setbacks and rear parking, they use words like prefer. Well, that doesn't give us very much comfort. Because what we have been able to do is actually to require those things through the negotiation for SP zoning plans. So what we're concerned about here in changing this community plan, which affects not just this property but other properties which may be redeveloped in the fairly near future, is that it undermines our ability to get to a win-win by trading off density against important design elements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Tom Cash. I live at 3104 Ackland Avenue. I'm the president of the Hillsborough West End Neighborhood Association, and I do come to speak in opposition mainly to the community plan change, although I'd like to speak to both. We have had great conversations, good community meetings. The developers have been open to hearing the concerns, and I think made some changes to address those concerns in a positive way. And I feel like Council Lady Allen is moving in the developers and the people that she and they have brought into the discussion have been moving in a positive way, and I feel good about where that's going. However, and when I talk to people about the specific plan, there are different concerns. When I talk to people about the community plan change, I pretty much get the same answer, and that is why. Why do we repeatedly have to defend our community plan and oppose changes block by block to a community plan that's supposed to be something larger? So it is pretty agreed upon that our community plan should not be changed in this manner. I know we were here a number of months ago about another two lots that a community plan was proposed, a community plan change was proposed, and we opposed that. And I'm now, as a neighborhood leader, trying to get people involved in Nashville Next and get people talking about the future of our city. But if we develop these plans and they can be changed like that, I have a hard time fighting the cynicism of why should we bother. So I really hope that the community plan can be supported, and if and when we change it, there's much more discussion. I also went to a meeting. A number of us went to a meeting yesterday about stormwater, and I know that's a concern, and I hope. Not with this specific property, but within the community at large. And I hope that can be a discussion and why we need to come up with a community plan that's a larger vision rather than going block by block or property by property. And one more quick thing, if I can, just there are two houses on the lot now. So going from 18 to 36 is not the actual density change. There are two properties now. Going to 18 is still a pretty considerable change in density. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Marty Hanson. I'm across the alley in Arlington Court, and I've been here twice before to see you folks. We have some different faces than last time, but whatever. I want to precede my remarks. You've got a handout in front of you like this, okay? And I'll read from that. I want to precede my remarks by saying we would like to have a nice building next door. I tried to think of an analogy for this, and I thought, well, we're all sitting here in our little beaver pond, and we're told we're going to get a neighbor, and it's going to be a whale. And we would like to have a dolphin instead of a whale, okay? And here's the rationale for all that stuff, okay? I'll read from what's in front of you there. Can I please get on the screen Capers Avenue on Google Map? Capers Avenue 37212. Who controls that screen?
Somebody taking your time.
You've got a minute and two seconds, so
if you go to Google, Capers Avenue 37212, would you please put that on the screen? Okay. I had to buy one of these to function here.
Yeah, tell me, your clock's running.
Yeah.
you may want to continue speaking while they're bringing that up.
Okay, and would you, yeah, right there. That's exactly where I want you to be. That's perfect. Okay, so what we're talking about right here is the subject. It's supposed to light up now. Is it doing it? There's too much light on the screen. It's not doing it. Well, you've got the same map right in front of you. It's item 3 on it's page 3 on what you got in front of you. It's circled in red, what you got right there. Okay, so it is at the bottom of this particular thing. Bottom center is where the relevant parcel is there, right? Okay, now, the larger parcel up there, and this is going to address the idea of going to 36 units in accordance with the big plan change. I thought we were here to talk about really this one building, and that's why this handout addresses the one building. So now let me go through that. First of all, I'm opposing 3B, right? The action is, what you should do is drop the 5-story building down to not more than 3 stories, absolutely. And the reasons for it is the deliberations when the decision was made did not include that only 4 other buildings, actually 3, in the entire like surrounding neighborhood have more than two stories of living space above ground. Okay? The recently constructed condos at the corner of 18th Avenue South and Wedgewood Boulevard have frontage on Wedgewood Boulevard. This property does not have frontage on Wedgewood Boulevard. It's a sleepy little intersection. Okay? So there are about, in that map that you have, that's page 2, the subject property is in what is labeled Special Policy Area 5. When the vote was taken, there was no discussion whatsoever of Special Policy Area 5 and that like properties that are in there. There are about 35 parcels in there. 3 of them have 3 areas of living space above ground. 90% of them are 2 areas of living space above ground. 90%. Okay? All right, now.
You've got 13 seconds. Need to wind up your conversation.
Do I get to speak to both these issues, 3B and 3A?
No, you've had 2 minutes, and we've had a problem with the clock, so you've really had about 3 minutes. So if you would summarize in the next 15 seconds,
if I can get that up, if I could get this damn light to work, it would work. Okay.
Well, you got 15 seconds. I wouldn't fool with the light.
Okay, let me tie it in a bow. You've got that in front of you. Okay, let me speak to the overall plan. If you look at the little red mark there, right? And if you look at the big red mark, that is the apartment building they're trying to compare and say it's a precedent in the neighborhood. Horse pooey. What it is an individually owned real estate investment corporate enclave completely surrounded with 6 blocks of wall 9 feet high around it. That is what planning is trying to say is the precedent in the area for going to 36 units.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay. This is what they show in their brochures, not that big building, right?
We're going to pause here just a minute, see if we can get the clock working.
We got a bad cable on the light, and took the light out the bus.
Stand up quick enough. While the people in opposition are speaking, I'd go ahead and let them speak first.
You want me to come back?
Is there anybody else wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Pam DeMatteo Lynn, and I've owned property at the corner of 18th Avenue South and Belcourt for almost 30 years. I'm very concerned. You guys are the Planning Commission, so I hope you'll have a plan that will keep our area from looking like Ackland Avenue, which is west of 21st. I don't know if you've been down Ackland, but there are lots of restaurants. It's almost all commercial with a few apartments thrown in, but you can hardly get through there. This building's going up, and then Randy Rayburn wants to build a building in that same area. I'm very concerned about the quality of life for that area. It's been a great place to live. I love the village. It's changing so much, and I guess change is inevitable. But as the Planning Commission, I hope you'll take all these things into consideration and come up with a good plan for Hillsborough Village and that area. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? If you line up behind the microphone behind one another, save the time the commissioners to get out of here a little bit earlier.
Hi, my name is Teresa Suber, and I also own a property on Belcourt. It's Arlington Court, Unit C1, and I'm not necessarily opposed. I agree that change is great. The building looks pretty, but I do think it is really tall, and parking is the biggest concern. We have permit parking currently, but the permit parking is specifically zoned from 9 to 5. So we compete with all the restaurants. You know, they kind of squat on our parking spots, and we really need them at night. So I'm wondering whether you see it as 18 units or 36 units ultimately. We would like to see it. I don't know if this is the appropriate venue, but we would love to see that permit parking specifically zoned maybe for just our 26 units to protect our parking, because we will, as much as they will build a parking garage, there are street entrances, and as we know, people will zip in and out of their places. They will park on the street. The parking underneath is going to be a backup. It'll just be a backup for them. They'll have two sources of parking. So if there's some way for us to protect our parking, and we will defer it to you to do the right thing and keep the zoning. We would prefer to see 18 units, but we'll just leave that to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, so you want to speak in favor of?
Thank you. My name is Ross Suber. Teresa is my wife. We live at Arlington Court, immediately to the east of the proposed property. She pretty much said what I wanted to say. I'm for it, the 36 units even. After seeing the drawing depicting more what it's going to look like, I like it more. We're just concerned with the parking. And the fact that they want to overpark it, we think is fantastic. But to second what my wife said, after 5 o'clock, we come home from work on a Friday, and we only have 16 parking spaces in a parking lot for 24 units. So we are absolutely dependent on the street parking. And that's something that we have to have, or we have to park down the street. And it's, it's inconvenient, it's unsafe for some women, it's unsafe for some men. But that's our only concern. I'm for it. I think it's great. I think the area is fantastic. And thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the applicant now has a minute 16 seconds for rebuttal if you'd like to speak.
We had the understanding that Councilmember Allen would support us rather than recommend deferral or denial through this commission meeting as we continue talks and continue to work to more of a common ground. Knowing that she recommends deferral, we'd like to actually defer our project while we make a decision to build what's permitted by right or analyze the cost impacts of the delays and the revised facade. The cost implications of the SP facade are growing with further discussions, and we'd like to have a little more time to work with staff and work with her.
Thank you.
I apologize for the late notice on that.
Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Before we do that, they've asked for deferral. Maybe we want to leave the planning commission or the public hearing open. So maybe there's a motion to defer indefinitely, but leave the public hearing open.
This is on both items.
Both items 3A and 3B.
Second.
Got a motion second to defer indefinitely on items 3A and 3B, and the public hearing will remain open. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now ready for item number 10.
Find it, I can't find it.
Get somebody to fix this and that.
I don't think, Greg, did y'all keep working at all your monitors? Sort of. We can't. Is it like this or is it worse? It's way worse. Okay.
You go up on the roof and check those rabbit ears.
I'll be back.
Commissioners, next item is item number 10. It's a zone change on Haywood Lane in the Southeast Nashville Community Plan. The request is for a zone change from 1- and 2-family residential to single-family residential zoning. The staff recommendation is disapprove. The zone change covers 237 properties, again, south of Haywood Lane, just to the west of Interstate 24. The existing zoning is R10, which permits one and two-family development, single-family and duplexes. The proposed zoning district is RS10, which limits residential development to single-family only. The ability to construct duplexes is the only difference between these two districts. There are no differences in bulk standards, and because this is outside of the urban zoning overlay, duplexes do not have to be attached. So existing single-family detached form within the neighborhood can be mimicked by duplexes through that ability to be detached. The policy is residential low-medium, which recommends residential densities of 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre. The current density of this neighborhood is less than 2 dwelling units per acre, less than the current range recommended by the policy. So essentially, the proposed RS10 zoning would lock into place the current density of less than 2 dwelling units per acre. And because of this, that RS10 zoning is not consistent with the RLM policy. The loss of potential duplexes through that RS zoning would not help to meet several critical planning goals as spelled out in the staff report. Here are 3 of them. The first one's housing diversity. Loss of duplex would eliminate another form of housing available to the neighborhood. It would also affect infill development. It removes an option for investment in this neighborhood, and would also affect transportation options. The loss of this density would likely make the neighborhood less able to support alternate forms of transportation or through transit. There are also several assets within the surrounding area that could help to support or could be supported by additional density within this neighborhood. The neighborhood has strong access to the interstate system, and often neighborhoods adjacent to interstates have higher density residential policies and can support higher density residential. There's also a commercial node at the intersection of Ezel and Haywood Lane in the northeast part of adjacent to the northeast part of the neighborhood. Additional dwelling units could help to support this commercial node. And there's also a transit line that runs nearby to the northeast of the neighborhood. And additional dwelling units could help to provide additional customers to the existing transit line, or could also even possibly promote the extension of a bus line or a transit line along Haywood Lane to the north. Staff recommends disapproval. The proposal isn't consistent with the residential low-medium density in terms of the residential low-medium policy in terms of density. The zone change will not have an effect on the required bulk standards because the standards are the same between R10 and RS10. And the reduction of development potential within this boundary will not help to improve the critical planning goals of housing diversity, access to transportation options, and infill development. Thank you.
Thank you. This item is open for public hearing. The applicant be allowed 10 minutes to make their case. I think it's Councilman Jason Potts, but he's not in the audience. Are there members of the area that are here to speak? Okay.
I'm in favor of the change.
Okay, that's fine. If you would come up, normally we'd allow him 10 minutes for the applicant, but if you'd like to speak, maybe 5 minutes for the...
I'm not a speaker, but I'll say something. Okay. Let's go with safety. That's what we're really concerned about here. It runs off Haywood Lane. The 3 streets that we're concerned about are cut-through streets. Goes over to Packard and down to Packard over to Tuscaloosa. The cut-through streets is catching a lot of traffic. More in density is going to make more trouble. We have a wreck, you can check. I'm Bobby Sexton. I live at 3913 East Ridge Drive. I live on the corner of Creekside and East Ridge, on the corner, 1 block up. I'm really concerned about they're trying to get that zone to keep out. The guy wants to build a duplex on the corner of Haywood Lane, which is, if you got a map, is 154, the lot number. You bring it up, please, right there on the corner of Haywood Lane, right there on the corner. Well, what happened now is a wreck there at least 2 to 3 times a week, I guarantee you. So he had sold that property once to a young couple, and I don't know if he subdivided it or whatever he did. When the young couple bought it, they realized they didn't own the whole lot there. They just owned a piece of it. The rest of it is I don't know how big it is. It's probably less than a quarter acre, I imagine. I don't know if you can build on less than a quarter or not. I don't know how big it is. I just want to make sure it's safety, what we're concerned about there. You can look, everybody can look. I don't know how you get information about how many wrecks are down there. And if they put a duplex right there on that corner, which I think he's trying to apply for it, I don't know. That's all I heard. It's going to be, where's he going, driveways. If you got a duplex, you're going to have one driveway. It's just not big enough. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in support of the applicant, which is asking for it to be downzoned to RS10?
Commissioners, my name is Gary Weiser. I live at 3908 East Ridge Drive, which is a couple of houses up from this lot. I moved into my house in '72, and the neighborhood is changing a little bit, but it's staying pretty good. My biggest concern is what type of building they're going to build there. A good example is over on Packard and Tusculum Road, I believe. Someone came in there and built a duplex. It's 2 or 3 stories tall. The thing stays empty most of the time, and the grass is 18 to 24 inches tall right now, I believe, if you'll go check. I would like for it to be changed to RS10, simply because so that we can try to keep the houses in that area looking similar, not a 2 or 3 story house, but they're on that corner. As this gentleman just talked about, the traffic of a morning and an evening is tremendous there, cut-throughs from Nolensville Road and on out Nolensville. So it would be appreciated if y'all would vote for the RS10. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Yes, I'm Logan Dellinger, live at 3822 Creekside. I'd like to speak in support of the zoning change. I'm concerned that the multi-unit dwellings that are being built in our neighborhood are not consistent with the character of our neighborhood. Also, the increase in traffic is a safety concern. There are a lot of accidents, and I just don't think that that would be in keeping with the character. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
My name is Keith Maynor, and I own the property at 3931 Creekside. And I wish to support the zoning change in that I believe that allowing 2 dwelling units on these lots is not in the best interest of the neighborhood for reasons that have been mentioned previously, but also and the property that I own has our neighbor has a building that was built as a house and an attached garage, and has since the zoning has allowed it, become a 2-family dwelling unit. And there were in excess of probably 5 or 6 adults living there, and 5 or 6 children, and a number of vehicles. I have a photograph here of what their front yard looked like a few years ago. And I brought it to the attention of authorities to try to get this corrected, and I was told that they were allowed to have 2 units there because of the zoning. However, there was nothing that they could do to try to correct that, other than it wasn't allowed that the vehicles be parked on the grass. So they went and talked to the owners and the occupants, and eventually they got a number of the vehicles removed from the grass areas. but it just became an unsightly area. The two families living there was just too much congestion on that lot, and it just is an eyesore to the neighborhood. That neighborhood has got a lot of really nice-looking, older brick, sturdy-built homes, and has a wonderful character that I'd like to see preserved by just allowing single families to occupy those lots and not allow any further duplexes or two families to live on those properties.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Come forward, please.
My name is Jamal Darbashi. I own the lot in Haywood Lane, the corner of Haywood Lane and East Ridge. The one they were talking about it, the duplex that I was trying to get that duplex built in there. And the lot is 0.48, which is half an acre, and I don't see any problem for building that duplex in there because I'm just like investors. I'm trying to build a duplex, and I'm happy people live in it. And plus, we have a number of houses, and what we do, we add, to cut the grass and taking care of the property, we add it to the rent, and we take care of that. If this is what they're concerned about, and it's in Haywood Lane, like I said, it's in the corner of Haywood Lane and East Ridge. So I'm trying to see if I can leave it like it is, R10. Basically, that's what it is. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in support?
Did I use all my time for?
Yes, sir. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the, we've had the opposition. Okay, did anyone else got anything to say that hadn't said anything? Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion second to close the public hearing. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hunter.
I don't have any comments.
Judy? Philip?
I have one curiosity question. How many duplexes are in this area now?
From our GIS maps, there are two right around this area. Only two in the study in the boundary right now.
Okay, and are there several vacant lots?
When we were out there, I don't remember seeing any vacant lots.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilman?
This is one of those times when my council hat, district council member hat, and my planning commissioner hat don't fit at the same time. Sometimes what is good planning principles is not always the best thing for what happens in a district. This is an older, established neighborhood. It's single-family residence, and I've spoken with the council member about this, and he feels that there is widespread report for what he has brought forward. He wouldn't have moved forward in this direction if this neighborhood hadn't have asked him to move in this direction. So I see a neighborhood that is looking toward the future and with some apprehension and trying to take steps to stabilize and hold on to what they have. And while I value the principles that Greg mentioned a minute ago, that this would maybe deter from occurring, from a district council member's perspective, I see that this is maybe the right thing for this particular neighborhood area. So.
Yeah.
No comments.
I couldn't agree more with the councilman. I remember when I rezoned all of Grieve Hall at one point. I think the whole district that rezoned. Planning Commission disapproved it. But, all the neighbors came to me with the same exact concerns. So I think I must have rezoned 1,000 acres at one time, like 7 years ago. So, I can't in good conscience say that, I think that one neighborhood deserves RS zoning, one neighborhood doesn't. Now, from a planning perspective, having diverse housing stock is always a good thing. But like I said, in good conscience, I agree with what the council member said, and I understand it. And in some instances, as neighborhoods grow, most of the neighborhood is already single family. There probably is some illegal duplexes and stuff in there, I'm sure. But I'm going to support the change. Thank you.
Andre? Okay, is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Second. State your motion again, I'm sorry. Motion to approve.
I motion to approve.
To approve the disapproval?
Are you approving the disapproval? Or?
I'm making a motion to approve the rezone.
Okay.
I make the motion to approve the rezoning, not the
Go
staff
against
report.
staff recommendation.
Go against the
We'll
staff.
make that clear. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the request to zone this R10. RS10, excuse me. Everybody understand that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, let me see a show of hands. All in favor? Okay. All opposed? Okay, it carries. The zoning, as we voted, to approve the RS10 has passed. Okay, we're ready for unit number 11, or item number 11. Make sure they said it correct. Huh? You left with Betty.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. I'm Ben Muscali of Metro Planning, and this is a request to create a urban design overlay on Murfreesboro Road. The request is to establish this overlay, which stretches from Rural Hill Road southward to the county line. The overlay is a 1/8 mile buffer on Murfreesboro Road and a 1/4 mile buffer on the intersections throughout the corridor. We recommend approval for this. The predominant zoning districts for this district are CS and AR2A. There are a few properties zoned SP, a few properties that are in an existing UDO. The properties in SPs and in the existing UDO would stay in those SPs, those UDOs. Those standards would apply. The standards of the Murfreesboro Road UDO would only apply if those SPs or UDOs were canceled. The intent of this UDO is to follow the policies created by the 2012 Antioch-Priest Lake Community Update, and that is to use, in goal number 7, is to use UDOs to create better design standards, more walkable corridors. Most of the land use policy in this area is commercial. The intent is to provide a framework for suburban development that permits various options, but does not prescribe a specific design. It mimics the standards being used in Gallatin, Hendersonville, and Mount Juliet. The emphasis on building design is that the primary entrances will come off of Murfreesboro Road or a primary street if it's off of the corridor. We want to see a high finished building material on these frontages, wrapping corners at least 10 feet, and see 40% glazing just to create a better, more consistent, high quality look to Murfreesboro Road. As far as landscaping goes, we'd like to see street trees placed in the public right-of-way between the sidewalk and street. The creation of a perimeter landscaping strip around these parking lots, basically just to screen cars, to screen parking so that it creates a better corridor for driving down and for walking. And then to see planting islands used to break up continuous parking spaces and then to create vehicle access points. And this just gives a consistent look throughout the entire corridor. For parking, we want to see dispersed parking throughout the entire UDO. We want to see it behind, beneath, beside the structures. But given this is a suburban corridor, we would allow one module of parking, which is one bay, one drive aisle, and another bay throughout the corridor. And this just creates a consistent look. For access, cross-access and joint access easements would be utilized. This reduces traffic on Murfreesboro Road, shares access, creates traffic along the corridor through these properties. So it just makes it a more walkable area, and it creates a better traffic area for vehicular access. Signage, for ground signs, we would allow monument and pillar signs. And for building signs would be mounted flush signs, projecting, awning, and window. And these would create a walkable neighborhood so that it isn't completely incompatible with people using the corridor for pedestrian traffic. Some quick precedents that we found were a development in Mount Juliet. And you'll see there's one module of parking along the frontage, landscaping islands at access points, high-finished materials used, and then your joint and cross-access easements. Another development in Hendersonville where you have high-finished materials, more glazing, a perimeter landscaping strip, more planting islands, and the same parking standards. And then in Murfreesboro, you have a pedestrian area with your public sidewalk, your public right-of-way and planting strip, your perimeter landscape strip, and then the same mimicked joint access easement. As far as triggers go, for full compliance, if it was total redevelopment, new construction, or expansion greater than 25% would trigger full compliance with the UDO standards. Partial compliance would be triggered as far as landscaping, sidewalks, and signage if it's an expansion between 10 and 25%. And then signage, if it's a non-compliant sign, you can replace panels. So just your panels would have to be compliant. AR2A properties cannot redevelop commercially without an approved base zone change. The standards of this UDO would apply to residential or agricultural redevelopment, and I'm going to talk about that later. Existing UDOs and SPs would follow the standards that they already have in their current zoning. If they were canceled, they would fall into this UDO. Staff does recommend approval, but speaking with some community members, we would like to add the condition that AR2A and agricultural uses, staff recommends in addition to compliance provisions to say that if it is an agricultural single-family use, that it would be exempt from the UDO standards, so that if someone had a barn, they could still do additions to their barn, they could still do an agricultural fence and not have to come into the UDO standards, so that wouldn't restrict the current agricultural uses. And with that addition, staff recommends approval.
So item's open for public hearing, and there's three of the council members are applicants, so whichever one would like to speak, just come forward if you.
How you doing? I wasn't planning on speaking today. I'm Steve Adams. I own the property at Mount View Road, Murfreesboro Road.
Yeah, if you would, let the council members, since they're the ones that requested, let them speak first, and then I'll get to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Council Lady Jacobia Dow, and I am one of the sponsors of the Murfreesboro Road UDO. I stand before you in support of the Murfreesboro Road UDO. Over the last, I would say about 2 years, I've been approached by a lot of property owners, just residential owners, and a lot of potential commercial buyers down that corridor. And there have been a lot of interest there. A lot of residents are concerned about, as this corridor becomes more and more commercial, how they can protect the interest interests of their homes and blend commercial in with their residential properties. So for this reason, I approached the Planning Commission about some guidance as far as developing this plan. I think we all know that Murfreesboro Road is a major corridor into our city. We have an example of development that didn't quite happen right as you look down Murfreesboro Road going into the city. And we have a wonderful opportunity out in our area now with a lot of agricultural land to develop it in a way that it enhances the community. It protects the residential developments we have there, and that it really, protects the aesthetics of the entire city, because we have a corridor that contains not only commercial, but residential and a little industrial as well. I have spent quite a bit of time with the neighbors. When I first met with the Planning Commission, they gave me a binder clip and told me that I have to do much of the work myself. And so for that reason, I know that Councilman Duvall has spent a lot of time talking to his people. Council Lady Johnson has spent a considerable amount of time talking to her people, and so have I. And I think the consensus among all of those people, including the public hearing, is that this UDO works for us. It works for the community. It's not too prohibitive to prevent commercial development and come into our community, but it raises the whole value of that corridor, and it protects a lot of the interests of the residents there. This plan is definitely not very, very restrictive, and we didn't want it to be that way. We wanted to have the opportunity for those people who wanted to sell their property, that they're able to sell it without a lot of restrictions on it. So the purpose is really not to put a lot of restrictions on it, but really to create the protection of those owners who have property along that corridor, as well as make sure that we have a nice blend from the residential development to the commercial development. So I stand before you and ask you to approve this Murfreesboro Road UDO, and on behalf of all the neighbors out in our district who will come to the public meeting and speak in support of it, ask for you to also support it. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Duvall.
Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm going to stand before you, ask you to support this urban development overlay. I'm excited about it. Just in the last 6 weeks, I've had 4 different retail businesses approach me because of the excitement that this UDO has generated. They're talking about building 5 sites along this Murfreesboro Road corridor. So this is doing exactly what we want to do, building under those standards and developing an area that's going to do nothing but bring quality and value to our community. We've held the neighborhood meetings, we've contacted the landowners, we've talked to many, many people, and we're trying to address the one objection that we've had that just basically was overlooked in the way of the farming and the AR2 situation. I believe we've addressed that appropriately. So I stand before you and ask you to support this urban development overlay. It's absolutely an asset to Davidson County and southeast Nashville. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lady Johnson.
Again, I come back up again to ask for your approval of the staff recommendation to approve with the exemption of the agricultural with this UDO. We feel that this UDO will promote pedestrian-friendly development, using broad design standards with best practices, high-quality design, and this will enhance all of the properties along this corridor and complement long-term transit-oriented goals, as well as, like I said earlier, better vehicular circulation. So we would appreciate your approval. Mr. Ingalls had to leave early. He's a property owner along this corridor. He wanted me to express on his behalf as well that he would like for this to be approved as a property owner in that area. He also attended many of the update meetings for the Antioch Pre-Slate Community Plan. So I just wanted to express that on his behalf because he did have to leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if you'd like to speak.
I'm Steve Adams. I own the property at Mount View Road, Murfreesboro Road, and I think it's a great idea. I think we need something out there since Hickory Hollow closed down to pull the businesses there, and I think it's a do it. And I just think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in support?
I'm William Cooper. I'm the owner of 8 acres of AR2A zoned land abutting approximately 370 feet on Murfreesboro Pike without a fence, without a sidewalk. The property is improved with a 45-year-old single-family residence of about 3,000 square feet, and the balance of it is in vacant woodland and pasture that was basically thrown away by the previous owner. I think that it's a definite certainty that the property will be developed, redeveloped, rezoned. The previous owner of the property tried to do so, and it's a virtual certainty that this property will be developed. However, I don't think that should foreclose or preclude me from trying to farm and clean up the pasture and build a traditional farm fence and maybe put in a barn or accessory structure, maybe built of plywood such as they sell in the parking lot of Home Depot. So I think it's important for the rights of the AR2A property owners to be protected. The Gallatin Road UDO, as I understand it, had no AR2A parcels, but this does. This has large agricultural vacant parcels. And for me to be foreclosed of an economic and practical way to put a horse or a vegetable garden or a shed or some horticultural berry field, while I wait until I do submit a development proposal on this property, I think that's a denial of basic private property rights. So I think the amendment that the staff mentioned to the commission is very important and should be adopted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Motion second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Andre?
I'm going to vote to support this.
Greg?
The last speaker mentioned AR2A amendment. Is that included in the language, or what's?
The staff's recommendation includes that, yes.
That would be part of the motion.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll support it.
No comments.
Two thumbs up. Councilman?
I'd just like to say to the council members, recognize your hard work in this. As Council Lady Dowell said in her comments, y'all have done a lot of the work here with some Planning Commission guidance, and having participated in this UDO process in the Donaldson area back about 4 years ago, I know the challenges that you've had to deal with, and so you're to be complimented on bringing this document forward and getting it to the place it is. So I'm supportive of it.
Would you like to make a
so I move that we adopt with the condition as stated, yes.
With the staff's recommendation that AR2A not be included in the UDO standards.
Well, basically, as long as they're using the property for AR2A purposes, then they're not included. If they go to commercial, of course, obviously.
Understood. Okay, you got a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say one thing about the council members in this particular case. They really have worked very, very hard. We were able to provide them some support information, but they have spent a lot of time and they've spent a lot of their own money they had to actually buy the signs to put up out there on their own. So they need to be recognized for the really hard contribution they do, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Phil, you got anything from Parks?
Just our meeting will be on August the 6th at noontime at Parks.
Okay. Anything from the start? Anything from the chambers of the downtown? Nothing? You got a brief
director's report. Just a couple of things. Alex Jenkins is going to be leaving with us. She's got a promotion with the Metro Election Commission, and her last day will be a week from tomorrow, on next Friday. We wish her well and thank her for all that she's done. As you know, we're actively involved in the response to the Gallatin Pike rezoning case, and that will be coming before you, I guess, next meeting. I think the next meeting, if not, sometime in August. With regard to Nashville Next, we have continued our work on our community meetings. We have thus far had 6 community meetings, widespread community visioning meetings this month. A number of you I know have been able to be at those. I think that they've been really pretty exciting as the community's kind of narrowing down. We've received about 9,000 individual recommendations in terms of policies. We've narrowed those down to 34, and we're going through a process that we're calling Become Nashville Next Mayor, where you actually come down, take those 34, narrow those down to ultimately 3 campaign pledges, so it gets the opportunity to work together. This Saturday at 10 o'clock, our doors open at 9:30, but at 10 o'clock will be the last meeting will be in this room on this topic. So if you haven't had an opportunity to be there, I would strongly encourage you. I think those of you that have been there have found them at least enjoyable, and the discussions are pretty lively and pretty good. I think really actually provided a lot of input.
I want to especially recognize Anita McCaig for the wonderful presentation she made at the Donaldson Hermitage Chamber.
Yeah, we've had well over 50 book a planner presentations and been to over 25 events, and part of that's to get that 9,000 pieces of input. Between now and your next commission meeting on July 27th, we've got this Saturday, Ray of Hope Community Church, Glenn Elementary Enhanced School Option Back to School Expo, and we have the community meeting here. So this Saturday we've got all those. Next week on July 30th, we're at 50 Ford in Madison. On the 31st, we're at the Nashville International Center for Empowerment. On August 6th, we're at Freilich and Clark Realty. And also on August 6th, we're at Hip Donaldson Night Out Against Crime, Councilman. So we'll be there. So
Rick, I'd like to interject that for all the staff and for us to really understand that that's just the tip of the iceberg of the hours outside of their normal job at the office that they're spending. It is phenomenal how much time the staff is putting into this project, way over and beyond the normal call of duty. So we all appreciate it very much. And it's great. The work is paying off.
Kind of like being a councilman.
I can't top that.
Is that it, end of your report?
That's it.
You feel like everything's on schedule for completion?
Right, yeah, it's on schedule. It's in line. I think, you can't really say enough about the community's involvement. You know, we've reached out in a lot of different ways, and they've turned out. We continue to look for ways. We're going to have a few more interactive things. In October, we're going to begin kind of allocating development. That'll be a fun process, and then I guess in the late winter we'll have some scenarios that'll be out there for review. So we're going to continue the Book a Planner process as we kind of move through. We had the initial Book a Planner. Now we're kind of into phase 2 Book a Planner, and we'll move into phase 3, which are going back out to community groups and stuff. So those of y'all that have seen us at your group, you may see us again. Different topic.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go home.